It's Tuesday, September 20th, 1988. Tara Calico, 19 years old, leaves her house at 9:30 a.m. for her usual bike ride. Before leaving, she tells her mother to come look for her if she isn't back by noon, as she wanted to play tennis with her boyfriend at 12:30. Her mother, Patty Dole, usually accompanied her on these rides, but in recent days, she had the feeling that they were being watched by something and wasn't confident about accompanying her daughter. So Tara left on her own. 1 hour later, Tara Calico still hadn't returned. 2 hours later, still no sign. When the critical time of noon came, and no one had returned home, Patty took her car and drove along her daughter's usual route. She found nothing, no trace of her daughter. Realizing something was wrong, she immediately called the police and Tara Calico was declared missing. Significant search efforts were made, but nothing was found of Tara Calico except for her Walkman and a cassette tape found near a campground. Locals were questioned about this strange disappearance, but no one seemed to have noticed this girl on her bike, nor did anyone have any testimony to offer. At this point, the investigation was going nowhere. The search led to nothing, the investigation stalled, and hopes of finding Tara Calico faded. It seemed like her case would become another addition to the massive pile of unexplained disappearances in the United States. Then, a few months later, something happened, something unexpected. July 1989, 10 months after the events. A young woman was walking through the parking lot of a store where few cars were parked. Among them was a white van with no windows, driven by a man in his 30s with a mustache. The woman went into the store to do her shopping, and when she returned to the parking lot, she found something terrifying on the ground: a Polaroid photo. In the photo, there were two people, a young woman and a very young boy. Both had their faces covered with black tape and were bound. They looked at the camera with terrified eyes. They were visibly in the back of an unsanitary white van. Barely able to make the connection between the terrifying Polaroid and the man in the van she had just seen, she turned around, but the van had already left. She immediately called the police. The case made headlines in major newspapers and eventually reached the ears of a certain Patty Dole, Tara Calico's mother. She was adamant. The young woman in the photo was her daughter. The FBI made enormous efforts to try and track down the van in question, but it was never found. The FBI also analyzed the photo, and although there was a striking resemblance between the young woman and Tara Calico, they were not 100% certain. Still today, the young woman and the young boy have never been definitively identified, and they've never been found. Until her death, Patty Dole continued to believe that this photo was a crucial piece to solving the mystery of her daughter's disappearance. There have been almost no developments in this case since then. Only a few declassified files have shown other Polaroids found in completely different locations, making it harder to link them to this case, but which feature people very similar to Tara Calico and always using the same modus operandi of photographing victims with Polaroids. The image is disturbing, and today, no one has found a solution to this mystery. Brianna Matland. On March 19, 2004, the young Brianna Matland, 17 years old, was preparing to take her GED exam, the equivalent of the high school diploma in the United States. She went to the exam, completed it, and did quite well. Her mother and she planned to spend the afternoon together to celebrate the end of the exam. Everything went well. They had lunch together and then went shopping at a mall near Montgomery, in the state of Vermont, United States. While they were standing in line at the cashier, Brianna suddenly stopped. Something had caught her attention outside. She told her mother she would be back soon as she needed to check something outside. Her mother finished shopping, paid, and went to meet her daughter in the parking lot. Her daughter was there but appeared very nervous and agitated. She really wanted to go home. At that moment, Brianna Matland had a strong desire for independence. She was only 17 but had a job in a restaurant. She worked as a waitress at the Black Lantern Inn. At the same time, despite being so young, she lived alone with a roommate, her childhood friend, Jillian Stout. Her mother dropped her off at 4 p.m. as Brianna had a shift to work that evening as a waitress. Her mother would never see her again after that. That night, Brianna did go to work, leaving a note for her roommate saying she would be back after her shift. She left work at 11:20 p.m. and took her 1985 Oldsmobile home, but she never arrived. No one ever saw her again. It would take 3 days, 3 long days, before she was officially declared missing. Her roommate, Jillian, had gone to her grandmother's for the weekend and didn't return until 2 days later. After seeing the note untouched, she began to worry and contacted Brianna's mother, who immediately called the police. At that point, the authorities started investigating Brianna's disappearance. Quickly, they made a connection to a bizarre incident that had happened 3 days earlier. On March 20, 2004, the day after Brianna's disappearance, a 1985 Oldsmobile had been found, slightly crashed into an abandoned house, its rear end lodged into the wall. This abandoned house was on Route 118 near the town of Richford, Vermont. Inside the car there was no one. The doors were unlocked, and all of Brianna's belongings were inside, including her clothes, a credit card, glasses, contact lenses, and medication for migraines. The windows were open. There were also fingerprints and DNA traces found inside the car, but to this day, they have not been identified. It was some hikers who originally took a photo of the strange scene, the same image that started this mystery. That photo captured the scene exactly as it had been found the morning after Brianna's disappearance. As soon as the connection was made between the disappearance and the car, a more intensive search began. Many people were questioned about the car, and numerous individuals claimed to have seen it before the police officially discovered it. First, 2 men, individually, claimed to have seen it between 11:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. near the house. They weren't certain, but they thought the headlights were on. Another person who saw the car was Brianna's ex-boyfriend, James Robitaille. He recognized the car in the middle of the night, around 3 a.m., and stopped by to check. He didn't see anyone around the car, but for him, the headlights were on, and the doors were open. Before leaving, he turned off the headlights and closed the door, but being completely drunk and afraid of getting into trouble, he wasn't considered a suspect. The FBI became skeptical of the theory that it was just a car accident, and soon another theory emerged, that Brianna had been kidnapped by multiple people. Brianna had taken self-defense classes, and even against 2 people, she could have fought back. A short time after Brianna's disappearance, the Vermont police received an anonymous tip. The tip said she was being held in a house near Berkshire, occupied by Raymond Ryan and Nathaniel Jackson, 2 dealers from New York who primarily dealt crack and cannabis. This anonymous information was taken seriously because several close friends of Brianna had confided to the police that she had experimented with hard drugs, and that she knew these 2 individuals, as they were significant crack dealers in the area. A theory emerged that Brianna owed money to these dealers, money she couldn't pay back. The police raided the house of the 2 men and found large amounts of crack and cannabis, but no trace of Brianna. At the end of 2004, an anonymous letter was sent to the police. The letter contained alarming information. It claimed that the 2 men were indeed involved in the case and that they had killed Brianna a week after her disappearance. According to the letter, they dismembered her body with a saw and then fed it to pigs on a nearby farm. None of the claims in the letter could be proven, and the 2 men were never convicted of anything related to Brianna Matland's disappearance, due to a lack of evidence. But this was not the end of the nightmare for Brianna's family, who are still involved in the search for their daughter to this day. They received numerous anonymous calls with people telling them that Brianna was currently tied to a tree in a forest, or even saying that she was drowning in a lake. These cruel pranks took a heavy toll on the family's mental health. As the hope of finding Brianna began to fade, in 2006, surveillance footage from the Caesars Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey, showed a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Brianna Matland sitting at a blackjack table. She seemed perfectly sociable and was accompanied by a bald man, who was never found. Brianna's parents were convinced it was her until higher quality video footage was shared, and they moved on from that lead. Nevertheless, the woman in question was never identified, and the mystery remains unsolved. Even today, Brianna Matland's family continues to search for their daughter and wants a resolution to this sordid case, whatever the outcome may be. Blanche Monier, born on March 1, 1849 in Poitiers, France, Blanche Monier belonged to a wealthy, influential family with royalist ties. She had a relatively normal childhood until she turned 26. At 26, she completely disappeared. It was the year 1876. Blanche was a beautiful young woman, the daughter of a family with high-ranking administrative positions, known for their charitable work in the community. In short, nothing could have predicted her disappearance. Her father passed away in 1882, and after that, people slowly forgot about Blanche, and the hope of finding her dwindled to almost nothing. However, on May 23, 1901, the Paris General Prosecutor received a letter that would change everything. An anonymous letter claiming to know where Blanche Monnier was, and that she was in grave danger. The police immediately went to the Monnier family home and broke down the door. They thoroughly searched the ground floor and found nothing. The same was true on the first floor. However, on the second floor they found a door locked with a double lock. When they opened it, they were immediately greeted by a foul, disgusting odor that pushed them back. It was a room covered in excrement plunged into darkness. At the back of the room, on a bed covered in mold, lying under a sheet, was Blanche Monnier. The police took a photo. Blanche Monnier weighed just 25 kilograms. She was in an extremely weakened state, covered in sores. She had been locked in that room for 25 years, always in the dark and barely fed. Her skin had tightened so much that it clung to her skeleton. The ensuing trial was catastrophic. No one received any punishment, though not for the reasons you might imagine. First, Blanche's mother died of illness 15 days after her arrest. She never revealed the reason why she had carried out such an imprisonment. Blanche's brother was not punished either, as the judges struggled to find anything in the law at that time that could incriminate him. In the laws of that era, aiding someone in danger did not yet exist. Many theories have been proposed about the reason for Blanche's imprisonment. The most widely accepted theory is that she had fallen in love with a certain Victor Calmels, a Protestant lawyer and Republican, which was contrary to everything the family stood for, Catholic and Royalist. This relationship would have greatly angered her family and led to her long imprisonment. Other theories suggest that she may have had a child from the relationship, and the child was buried in the Monnier family garden, while Blanche was locked away to prevent her from testifying. Another theory suggests that Blanche suffered from anorexia, and her very bourgeois family wanted to hide this illness. In any case, nothing justifies the horrific 25 years of imprisonment she endured. Unfortunately, the story does not end well. Blanche was immediately taken to the hospital, but the psychological damage was immense. She was diagnosed sometime later as suffering from anorexia, hysteria, schizophrenia, and exhibitionism, according to the medical criteria of the time. She died, still considered mentally ill, in an asylum, never having recovered from her 25 years of captivity.